Equality for women! Equality for women! I don't know who you think you are, but equality for women is never going to happen. The right for women to vote! The right for women to vote! What do they think they're doing? Women are never going to vote. While equality between men and women may seem to be just within our reach, the opposite has been true for most of history. Women have been seen as objects, something that a man may show off as a prize. The previous enactments were of Elizabeth Cady Stanton of the Seneca Falls Convention in 1848 and of the 1920 Women's Suffrage 19th Amendment vote. However, those are just a few examples, most of which have not happened in our world today. A woman's opinion has never been held in as much value as a man's, and not only that, a woman's freedom has never been held as highly as a man's. The following is a story about what happens when a woman who is completely devoted to her husband loses any sort of freedom she may have possessed, and the consequences that come with this loss are revealed. The Yellow Wallpaper by Charlotte Perkins Gilman. It is very seldom that ordinary people like John and myself obtain great ancestral halls like these that we had just secured for the summer. And while the house is as beautiful as the sun itself, there's something strange within these walls. I confronted my husband John on the matter. He simply laughed and said, "Darling, there's nothing wrong with this beautiful home. Stop your worrying. It is bad for your health." Of course, he's correct. I'm simply being superstitious and impractical. However, if I may trust you with a secret that no one else may ever hear, I do believe that John is why I do not get better. He is a physician, and when I confronted him about my behavior at a time prior to our leasing of the house, he simply scoffed and diagnosed me with temporary nervous depression. He then talked to my brother, who's another highly ranking physician, and they both began to give me pills to help with my small issue. They've forbidden me from working until I recover, but I disagree with their logic. I am much more likely to go insane sitting alone in this house than if I were to go outside and work. I'm always exhausted these days, even after doing nothing. John said, "It is simply a side effect of the medicine you're taking. Once you're better, you may take less medication and the exhaustion will diminish." Any argument I attempted to make against the case was ignored. John simply stated that it is for your own good, and your brother quite agrees with me. This beautiful home seems to have its own soul. Everything is absolutely perfect. It is so alive. It feels as if it's moving. John, of course, ignored my views of the house. "It isn't moving, sweetheart," he replied, not even looking up from the paper he was reading. "Now take your medicine, please. It really is helping." His continuous taking of medicine every hour of the day does not seem to be helping in the slightest. But he is my husband, and more well-versed in the field of medicine, so I follow his orders without complaint. I dislike our room very much. It used to be a nursery, so the windows are barred, so the children could not open them and tumble out. I may ask John about removing these bars. They make me feel like a prisoner in my own home. However, the worst part of the room is the yellow wallpaper. Stripped and falling off in multiple places, it is not a bright yellow, but rather a somewhat unclean and dulled version of the color. John is off again, helping with a patient in the village. I feel no better than I did when we arrived here. I have no need to suffer from this depression, yet it is all my mind can think about. As for the nervousness, of course I am nervous. I am more of a burden on John than the loving and caring wife that I should be. John said that the baby could make my condition worse, and I could possibly harm the baby. So of course Janine is taking care of her. I would never want my baby to be in harm's way. I asked John to re-wallpaper our room, and at first he agreed, and then apparently came to his senses. There's nothing wrong with this wallpaper. Your nerves are simply telling your brain something different than that which is actually true. I am leaving this wallpaper up, because if we let your nerves decide, catastrophe will happen, as you will soon decide that you dislike other things in this household all solely because of the nerves. He went on to say, "Darling, this house is truly doing you well. And I do not wish to renovate a house we will only be leasing for 3 months." Of course, there's an ulterior motive. It's not simply because of love or my temporary nervous depression that he was worried, but rather the cost of the renovations. I attempted to convince him to let us move to a downstairs bedroom, but he refused that as well. Still, my husband is happy, and so here in this room I shall stay. Besides, the room isn't that horrible. Just the yellow wallpaper. John said that I'm not allowed to go see my cousins on the 4th of July, and instead they will come here because it could worsen my condition to leave the house. And while I sit in my room and look on the injustice of it all, I begin to see patterns in the wall. Places where the paper forms a pair of eyes and a stretched body. They're all staring at me with those eyes. Always watching. Whoever occupied this room prior to me did not like it one bit. The wallpaper is peeling, which is what I feel like doing to it. There are also chunks of the floor missing along with plaster from the wall. However, these things don't bother me. Just the horrible wallpaper. The family has come and gone for the 4th of July, and I am absolutely exhausted. John became angry with me and told me, "If you do not begin to pick up faster, I will be forced to send you to the Wire Mitchell in the fall." I would not wish that upon my worst enemy. I have heard that he is even more strict and rigid than my own husband in his practice. Also, the journey would sap any energy I have left. It would get me out of this room with the horrid wallpaper, though. But I've come to realize that the wallpaper is not truly that bad. I'm continuously tracing these patterns in my mind. Such different shapes they form, almost human-like. I've begun to have severe mood swings, and have lost much of my strength. John thinks that it's best if I continue to stay in the house, so as not to waste my limited energy. He truly does love me. He puts up with me so well. I only wish that I could help with his burden. I have decided that I am happy in our room. Had John not put us in here, the baby would have likely been in here. And something so young should not be left in a space so cruel. I have begun to realize that the patterns in the wall are women, creeping around the room. I watched the one the other night, a woman, as she continued to creep around the room in our permanent wallpaper fixture. John saw me get out of bed. I asked him if we could leave this place, but he said, "Your health is improving, there's no question about it. We only have 3 weeks left. You'll be fine." But both John and Janine are beginning to pick up on the patterns in the wallpaper. I have walked in on both of them, simply staring at the wall. They cannot figure out the secret. It is mine and mine alone. I have seen the girl in the wallpaper, and I do not wish for others to acknowledge her existence. I have discovered that the patterns move because the woman in the wallpaper shakes. I am unsure if it is a single woman or multiple residing within the wall. But the woman during the day, but I see her sneaking around everywhere. She leaves during the day and comes back to the wallpaper at night. It is truly astounding how much I see her. The acknowledgement of her existence must be the key. I do believe she is asking for my help, so that she may escape her prison in this yellow wallpaper. John has become rather queer. I believe he is aware of my plans to get the woman out of the wallpaper. He asked me many questions, more of which sounded for professional reasoning than for love. He's gone into town, and now is my chance to help the woman escape. I begin at night, when she's back in the wallpaper. I rip and tear as much as I can of this horrid yellow wallpaper off the walls. But it's not enough. Janine saw what I had done to the wallpaper, but I simply explained that it was out of spite. She did not question my motives. Janine and all the help have left, leaving me alone with the task of removing the woman from the wallpaper. I have locked the door and thrown away the key, so that I will be the sole savior of this poor individual. I do not wish to leave this room. The blurred women creep along the ground, like predators waiting to snatch their prey. I do wonder if they all came from within the wallpaper. Like I did. John has finally arrived home. I've stripped away the wall completely, and alas, the woman is free. I've been in here so much that so much more than, the freedom I have in here is so much more than that which I possess with John. John is at the door now and is asking to be let in. Of course I'm refusing. I am free here without my husband and without the rope around my neck that he always provides. John has finally entered, and guess what? He fainted. The weak-at-heart man could not stand to see that I had escaped and that I am truly free. Free from all. So I continue to creep, crawling over his body as I relish in the freedom. I am no longer within the yellow wallpaper. I am free.